What's up guys, it's National Master Dem Apples here, back with another video, and today we're going to be showing 3 chess gambits that you have to try. So, 2 of these gambits are going to be for white, and 1 of these gambits is going to be for black. And so let's take a look at our first gambit here. We start out with pawn to e4, and after one of the most common responses, pawn to e5, we go pawn to d4. And this is the start of the Danish gambit. Now, most people are inclined to take this pawn. After all, like, if nothing happens, we will take this pawn. And let's say they develop their knight, we can even gain more space. So this is pretty nice for us. So pawn takes pawn, c3. We do not want to recapture the pawn back because this gives black a tempo on our queen, and our queen's gonna have to move again, and then black gets another tempo, and it's all quite nasty, and it's not what we want. So we sacrifice another pawn. After black takes this, well, you could say, okay, you can take this pawn, and while this is not a bad move, the wilder variations go bishop c4, just attacking the f7 pawn immediately and giving up yet another pawn. And so usually, if black has already taken all these pawns, he will take this one. But after bishop takes pawn, where we finally recapture, you can see that we have some really nice development going on. And so the game I'm going to show you is a game between Henry Bird playing as white and Emanuel Lasker. You might recognize that name. He was a world champion, I think, for like 20 years or something like that. And Bird destroys him in like 12 moves, I believe. So after queen to g5, which is definitely a slightly aggressive move, black has not castled, he's got everything on the back rank, and he decides to move his queen out. Not very principled, but his point is simple. This g-pawn is under attack, and it's going to be annoying for white to defend. Say white goes like queen f3 to defend his pawn, you know? Black can probably just develop his pieces. But he's just pointing out the weakness of this pawn. But white surprisingly ignores it. Knight f3, attacking the queen, just developing. And now Lasker just takes this pawn. Now this is just a huge error. He should probably just check his opponent, gaining a tempo, or just move his queen out of the way. But he gets a bit aggressive, and now we can see why the Danish gambit is so unforgiving. You have so many active pieces, and if your opponent makes one little slip up like this weird pawn grab, right, all your pieces spring to life. Rook g1, queen h3 is going to be played soon after this intermediate check. King e2 is played. Again, white does not necessarily want to block his bishop, even though he blocks the check, because now his bishop can't see anything. And again, he does not want to trade. Usually when you're attacking, you don't want to trade pieces because then you'll have fewer attackers. So, king e2 is played, and this is a really nice move, to be honest. I mean, black can't punish this because all his pieces are on the back rank. The queen moves, and now Bird unleashes a very nice move. Bishop takes f7. And so his point is simple, right? You can't take this because after it takes, there is knight g5 with a fork. So instead, Bird plays king to d8. Now, it's important to know, I guess, other moves are possible, but you're not telling me that this is any better when you still can't take this and you lose your queen. And king e7 is also possible, but something simple like, say, rook takes pawn, threatening some nasty discovered checks, should be sufficient enough for a win. So king to d8 is played, and now bishop takes pawn, attacking the rook, and it's also important to note that Lasker is only up 1 point, so you're not, while you are giving away like 2 pawns, you're not giving away that much material compared to some gambits. So, the rook is definitely trapped here, knight e7 is played, and Bird does not even go for the rook. I mean, he definitely could, but he goes knight to g5, attacking the queen, and there's no real good spot for it. The queen is pretty much trapped because black can't escape and give a check at the same time because h5 is covered. So he goes queen h4, moving the queen to safety. Unfortunately, not moving his king to safety. And we have a really nice checkmate courtesy of the pin pawn on d7. So, that concludes our first gambit, which is the Danish gambit. Our second gambit of this video is going to be for black. And so, a chess YouTuber may have popularized this gambit a lot. I'm lucky to have met him in person. He's a really nice guy. And so, it starts with e4, e5, and you might be like, okay, this is really symmetrical. What could possibly go wrong for Team White, right? Knight f3, knight f6, oh, you're just copying. What are you going to do? Take here? Well, this is actually, I'd say, a slight error. But we are going to go knight c6, attacking this knight. And so usually white will take our knight. And we'll take back with our pawn. And you'll notice through this exchange, yes, we have double pawns, but now our queen is active and so is our bishop. So this is fine for black. After d3, we continue activating our pieces. Now, it's true that white has multiple options here, but d3 is by far the main move here. Simply because it defends the attacked pawn, and it allows this bishop to come out. d3, bishop c5. We are not stopping the attack. We are targeting f2, I guess. And this is a common theme in a lot of gambits where you target the f2 square or f7 square. And this is no exception. Bishop c5. We're also getting ready to castle if we need to. Usually bishop e2 will be played, so white can castle. And now we play this really interesting move. So it's good to know that knight to g4, attacking this pawn, is already an option. Say if white takes, queen h4 is an interesting move, threatening checkmate as well as the bishop. And after, say, white plays g3 to stop checkmate, we can take this. And although this endgame is like not that bad because we have the bishop pair, there's a much better move order we can do this in because, again, we do have double pawns and we are down a pawn, so it's not the greatest to trade off pieces. But this is not a terrible option. Instead, we go for the aggressive pawn to h5 with a similar idea as in a fishing pole trap. We want to go knight g4 and queen h4, or something like that, right? Castles, knight g4. And you might say, well, you don't have any immediate threat. Well, okay, well, we have a really nasty threat the next move. And first of all, white shouldn't take here because after it takes, we have an open h-file. The queen's going to get in. The pawn's going to come through. I mean, this is pretty bad for white, honestly, practically speaking. So, and our not immediate threat, say pawn to a3, is something like queen to d6, where we threaten checkmate. And white has to go g3. And this is really annoying for him because he's weakening his position a lot. We can go h4, and we're definitely going to break through on the king side. So usually white will go h3 right away to kick out our knight, and we will go queen d6 anyways. You might be confused, right? Are we not just hanging a knight? Well, after takes. This is already forced checkmate, by the way. It's pretty funny, but white cannot stop checkmate here. For instance, rook e1, check, and then checkmate. And say pawn to g3. Pawn to g3. This is checkmate. And so usually people here, after queen d6, will go pawn g3, realizing this, and say, well, I stopped your checkmate, and now I'm going to take your knight next. Well, not so fast. Queen takes, utilizing the pin on the pawn again, and after king h1, queen h2 is a really nice checkmate. So you can trap a ton of people with this opening. I highly recommend you try this one out. And the last gambit we have here, I might save the best for last. I'd say this is the most sound gambit out of all of them, but I've had a lot of fun with this, and I know a friend who's a FIDE master of mine who's beaten many grandmasters with this gambit. And so it's really effective at a high level as well. So pawn to e4, pawn to e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, at bishop c5. You might have played this, you might have seen this a lot, and you might say this is so boring. It's the same thing over and over again. Well, not today. Pawn to b4, attacking the bishop. Now, usually in these kinds of positions, white goes c3, b4, a4, like just as a meta strategy in the Italian. And what white's doing, like, if black does nothing, say bishop b6, he kick-started his move with pawn to b4. And so he's already gained space on the queen side, which is pretty nice for him. So pawn b4, and usually black is inclined to take. He does not really want to take with the knight, because if he takes with the knight, we can gain a tempo in the knight, the knight's going to move back, and we can get a really nice center here. Takes, bishop b4, and even something like, I mean, we can go knight d2, but we can even go king f1 and have a really nice center. Not much black can do about this. So usually black takes with the bishop in order to meet c3 with bishop a5. And so it's harder to play d4 and recapture back with the pawn because our pawn is pinned. Nevertheless, the gambit is to go ahead with pawn to d4, and after takes, to ignore everything and castle. And so you might see that white's already castled, he's got his pieces out, and if given another move, he is going to take here and get a really nice center as well. So black can't allow this to happen, right? So pawn takes pawn was played by Ruben Fine, and in this position, and I should mention that Bobby Fischer is playing with white here. This is a really nice game and one you should know. Queen to b3. This is a common idea in these kinds of positions, just attacking f7, and a common idea in gambits in general. And so this pawn needs to be defended. It really does. This pawn was worth way more than this pawn. Why? Well, because if you let this pawn get taken, right, you lose your castling rights and your king gets opened up. So that's a double whammy right there. Queen e7, protecting the pawn, two defenders. And now white recaptures the pawn. Black develops, getting ready to castle, but when you're on the attack, you really don't want your opponent to castle or do anything at all. And so Fischer plays a really nice move here, knight to d5, forcing the issue right away, attacking the queen. Queen d8 is not really something black wants to play because Fischer can just stop him from castling right away again. One option is bishop to a3, but the engine likes bishop to g5 even more. Just preparing to double black's pawns. Say castles, this would be an enormous error, first of all, because white wins material. The knight is pinned, by the way. So this puts immediate pressure on black, and now white's rooks are even connected, and e5 is going to come regardless of whether black likes it or not. So black plays knight takes knight, and now we have a choice of what to capture with. But again, we need to keep the momentum going. If we stop the momentum, black is going to castle and be perfectly fine. So pawn takes, attacking the knight. The knight goes to e5. And now Fischer takes, and now how is he going to keep the momentum going? Well, he attacks the queen, right? He's not giving a single second for black to castle. Queen g5 is played. And now, here's Fischer's idea, right? He wants to be able to take this pawn. Why would he take this pawn? Well, imagine if this bishop were here, right? Not only would this attack the rook, but it would prevent black from castling as well. And, you know, that would be good because you can't castle through check. As I said, imagine the bishop were here, right? You can't castle through check. So that's pretty bad. Additionally, this pawn controls the vital f6 square, and taking it would remove a defender of this square. You might notice something, just a similar theme with all these gambits. Black's pieces are all in the back rank, and this queen is doing whatever, and this bishop is doing whatever. However, the queen right now is doing a good job defending this pawn. So Fischer plays this really good move, pawn to h4, deflecting the queen. And so let's see. Black can't really hang on to this pawn, because after queen g6, rook e1 check, bishop takes rook, rook takes, and now black is forced to make a concession here. He has to go king to d8. If he goes king to f8 or something like that, bishop a3, followed by back rank mate is going to happen. And he can't go king to d8 either, because after queen to e3, he's just going to get checkmated. There is straight up not a way to prevent checkmate on e7. So, in summary, black can't really hold on to this pawn. The same thing goes for queen h6, really. Rook check, black still can't take, you know what I mean? After takes, king to d8. And here, okay, well, we don't have queen to e3, but the move we do have which is apparently really strong. There are multiple, but queen to g3 is very strong, attacking the pawn and putting pressure here. d6 is also really strong, unleashing a discovered attack, and just getting more pieces into the action. So Ruben Fine captures the pawn on h4, and Fischer captures on g7, forcing him to move the rook. The rook moves, and now check. Fischer does not mind giving away his rook. He knows that if rook takes, this will just lead to the inevitable combination that happened in the game. So, king to d8 is played, and now the very nice deflection, queen to g3, attacking the queen, and black is simply losing the queen here. See, his problem is that the rook controls this file, so bishop f6 checkmate is threatened, right? But in order to prevent bishop f6, his queen needs to control this diagonal, or this square in particular, and that's not possible. And so Ruben Fine resigned here. The best move is queen e7, but funnily enough, black is still getting mated here after this. So a nice way to end off the game would have been queen takes queen, followed by bishop f6 checkmate. All the escape squares are covered, and really nice game by Fischer here. So again, the three gambits that I recommend you try out are number 1, the Danish gambit, which starts after all this development, and you sacrifice all your pawns to get a really nice attack here. Second of all, the Stafford gambit, which is for black, and you play symmetrical, and then you play knight c6, bishop c5, followed by h5, trying to get a fishing pole setup with queen d6 or queen h4, or maybe even queen d4 sometimes. And the last one is the Evans gambit, which looks like a normal Italian, but with a twist. Pawn to b4, trying to expand in the center, castling and going queen b3, recapturing the pawn, and you can see white's development is really kicking in. Another idea in these kinds of positions is bishop to a3, because the bishop here controls f8, and again, you can't castle through check. So, I hope you enjoyed this video. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.